Good job down, not good job this. Because, hey, America, before you head out to the stores, you might want to take a look at this other number. It's your Visa bill. Actually, it's all our Visa bills, and it just hit a big old $18 trillion. That's a milestone that's now become a millstone. That's what we owe as a country. And the interest payments on it alone are killing this country. It is our debt. And we ain't paying it back. We're just piling it up. Pushing still more spending, more strategic initiatives, more money for things we can't afford with money we just don't have. This isn't Ferguson. This, my friends, is our future. All our futures, black, white, all of us drowning in a sea of red. Because take a very close look at this Visa bill. Politicians are still running up the tab. And I want you to take a wild guess who's going to be picking it up. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and here is how bad this debt thing actually is. We celebrate annual deficits when they're only $500 billion. Never mind that is spending $500 billion more than we're taking it in. We're whooping that up. It all gets piled into this big old debt clock you're looking at. And you can almost see our country going right down the tubes, beholden to investors who do not like us, scheming as we speak to find any alternative to us, and ready at a moment's notice to say the hell with us. Now, we keep saying, well, where else are they going to go? After all, we can just print more money and pretend we're not the deadbeats we really are. But we are deadbeats. And in the meantime, we keep getting distracted. So we focus on riots in our country and ignore what is really rotting this country, what gutless politicians are leaving for all of us in this country, no matter our color, no matter our background, no matter our wealth. The mother of all Visa bills from which there is nowhere to hide. Because it's not a racial clock ticking America. It's America itself. In so deep, we haven't the slightest clue how the hell to get out. Now, my next guests know what it's like to stick to a budget and how dangerous it is for the government not to even try to stick to theirs. Anthony Mangialuzzo, I should say, runs a computer services company. He's in Philadelphia. Ryan Tate operates a publishing concern in Oklahoma City. So, Ryan, ended with you, begin with you. You ran a business this way. What would happen to you?
Well, I wouldn't even think to do that. And you nailed it, Neil, when you talked about politicians are making decisions that will affect us when they're long gone. And I think that's what drives us nuts. When I wake up in the morning, I look at our budgets, I look at what we brought in and what our expenses are, and it doesn't even cross my mind to think that it would be a good fiscal policy for me to go ahead and spend whenever I want to. I make decisions based on what will protect us, what is sustainable, and I know that I have to pay those bills and I'm going to be held accountable for those decisions. And our politicians know they won't be held accountable because they'll be long gone when you and I and our children are paying these bills. That's really crippling them and crippling America like we see every day.
What I worry about it that is this idea that, well, you know, we merrily go on. I mean, the market's had a record today. If it were worried, it had a funny way of showing it. What do you tell people when you look at this and see what's on the horizon and see all this debt? No, eventually we'll have to pay it off. No, we're less than a decade away from half our budget being consumed by just interest payments on the debt. What do you tell people?
Well, first, America is in need of politicians, statesmen, anyone who will do what's right. Right now, they're still just doing what's popular. And we've got to have people that will do what is not the popular thing, will do what is hard, but will make the best decisions.
Well, you know, that gets them
America.
Thrown out of office. And Anthony, I mean, that's
absolutely.
what they fear, right? So what do you tell them? What do you tell them to do?
Well, first
Anthony
of all, don't even...
Go ahead, Anthony.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Oh, I was going to say the same thing. I mean, as a business and a business owner, I would give our government an F in terms of ratings. Now, the big problem is this. The people running D.C. are not business people. They've never had a budget. They have an unlimited printing press. You're not going to teach a fish how to walk, and you're not going to teach a politician how to do business. They need to be held accountable.
Well, wait a minute. They did teach a shrimp how to run.
That's
if
right.
I remember
and we're
that
paying
particular
for rabbits
video.
to get Swedish massages too, so that's smart.
It's a family show. Let's stick to the family aspect. All right. So now, if we're going to ignore this, and this is 18 trillion now, you know, 9 trillion of this has happened over this administration. It's not the Republicans are without blame. It just piled up faster under this administration, and both parties seem to show a lack of resolve toward addressing it. What happens to your businesses and this is open to either of you, if we don't?
Well, Neil,
I'll jump in
the
because
biggest
the
problem
first
that we
thing-
have is
Go
that
ahead,
it
Ryan.
creates it creates uncertainty for our customers. People aren't spending their money because they're afraid. They're afraid of their future. They're afraid of what tomorrow looks like. And when it comes out that our president and Congress, that they're willing to lie and deceive us and take the Affordable Care Act, they're willing to bet that they can get things passed on our stupidity, who knows what other decisions that are being made behind the scenes that you and I aren't privy to. And don't come to me and don't ask to raise my taxes until you get the budget squared away. I understand tax increases. I understand what needs to happen there. And there are certain instances where we need that. But until you can balance the budget, until you can be fiscally responsible, I don't even want to discuss that because there's far too much waste. And again, it's crippling us.
Now, Anthony, if you ask a lot of people why they're worried and why they're nervous, they don't isolate the debt. What they tend to think, though, is that Washington is shoving a lot their way that they can't afford, whether it's the health law, whether it's all the new, taxes and regulations that go with that go way beyond just the upper income. All they know is there's some angst there, and it's being reflected early on in retail sales. How would you say Washington could turn this around or at least improve the mood?
What Washington needs to do is they need to work with the small business owners. We're the people that are creating jobs. We're the people that are doing things. And the problem is every time you make a new tax, every time you put a new government program on, what ends up happening is we get hit as a small business owner. Our employees get hit. Some of our team members are up $300 a month on their health care just with these November renewals that we had. You need to foster small business. You need to work with businesses to create jobs and not essentially penalize people for trying to make a living and trying to create living for other people. When our company, we create 50 jobs and we're growing
Well, I hate
faster
to break
and
it
faster.
to you guys, and maybe this is a Fox alert, but just today the administration is establishing new guidelines for overtime pay and overtime workers, and you might have to shuffle your workers around again to account for that. Ryan, I hope I'm not telling you something you didn't hear, but
no, we're
Happy
well
Tuesday.
aware of that. And but here's the other thing, Neil, that's frustrating, is that rule will change as well. Even look at the Affordable Care Act and all the work, all the money that small businesses, large businesses, that we spent preparing for what was getting ready to happen, that the rules keep getting changed on us. It's so hard to respond because we can't hold them to their word on these things. And
Ryan,
how
I
are we
agree
as
with you on
business
that.
owners
You can't
supposed to
blame-
make decisions?
go ahead, finish that
Yeah,
thought.
you can't play Monopoly and then change the rules mid-game. It creates an unfair advantage.
And the
Right.
advantage always seems to Washington. Gentlemen, I want to thank you. I want to thank you both. And I know this number gets lost in the sauce, but 18 trillion. I know it doesn't seem like much, and it's just $1 trillion every other year or so, but it's a lot. It's a lot of money, and
Yes.
it's all
Thank
on
you,
us.
Neil. Thanks
Gentlemen,
for having
thank
us
you. By the way, now we're going to be adding about 5 million illegals into all of this. Listen to this.
We keep talking about the illegal immigrant. Here we go again, talking about the illegal immigrant and how we can make it easier for them. How does this help the American worker?
The problem is we have no partner.
I think
in
Congress can pass a bill when the American people start regaining trust in the administration to actually do their job and enforce the laws that are already on the books.
He's acting in a capacity beyond where he has the ability to do so.
Sir, I respectfully disagree.
In deporting criminals, these people have terrorist ties. And I'm getting tired of the Democrats with this righteous indignation saying that we can't find a Congress we can work with.
All right, that was House Republicans grilling Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson over the president's executive actions on immigration that could freeze deportations for up to 5 million illegals. He says it's simple common sense. I think my friend Lou Dobbs would beg to differ. Of course, Lou with our sister network, Fox Business Network. What did you think of all of that?
I think it was one of the most stunning performances I've seen from Jay Johnson, and this administration's brought us more than a few. But for him to be asked, what is the legal justification for the president's executive order conferring amnesty on 5 million illegal immigrants, he replied, well, I listened very carefully to the president's rationale, and I was satisfied with it. Therefore, you should be satisfied with it. And that was and he was bragging about being a lawyer of all things for 30 years. It's a closed feedback loop in this administration, Neil. The president decides that it's legal. His subordinates say, you know, that sounds right to me. They go to Congress and say...
What do you think of their argument, though, Louis? Say, well, we wouldn't have done this if you guys had passed a bill. You've heard that ad nauseum.
Yeah, I don't see anywhere in the Constitution, certainly where it's written or implied, that Congress has a duty to do what the hell they're told by the President of the United States. They have their own separate article in the Constitution. They have been, up until this president, considered a co-equal branch of government. They are now subordinates and subordinated to an imperial president.
Do you wonder, too, I mean, we're going to talk about this later in the show, Lou, this is definitely a hard drive to the left on the part of this administration.
You're exactly right.
The opposite tact you and I were thinking would happen after we were covering the midterm elections. And I'm wondering why that is. Is it just that this administration feels it's consequential and historical enough? It doesn't need to worry about dealing with the Republicans, or what? What is it?
I think that this president is doing what he can because he has, in his judgment, the latitude, and there is no countervailing influence. This president has dismissed the concept of co-equal branches of government. It would be fascinating to see what happens if imagine this, if John Roberts, the Chief Justice, had decided that Obamacare, well, it was a fine instead of a tax. I'm not entirely sure that this president and his administration, imperial and authoritarian, nearly authoritarian in their views, would have even listened. I don't see them changing, modifying behavior at all here, irrespective of the election.
Or even the debt. And are you surprised that Republicans, too, who are so afraid of getting pegged with shutting the government down, it always takes two to tango, as you and I said, right. You can be just as obstinate wanting to continue to spend as not wanting to spend. Leaving that aside, they are almost giving up the spending fight. Or are we judging too early?
I think that we may be judging a bit early, about 9 days early in terms of working time for the right. members of the Senate.
But you're going to have to
House.
See the new Senate, see exactly. What it does.
And this president, you're talking about the money. People should understand, 70% of that $18 trillion has been run up in the last 6 fiscal years.
Right.
It's incredible. And for this president to just blithely send his Secretary of Homeland Security to Congress to simply say, you know, I disagree, without rationalization, without reference to authority. I agree with the president, therefore don't you worry your pretty little heads about it, Congressman and Congresswoman. This is a bizarre, I think, absolutely wondrous performance from an administration.
What do you think of his argument? What are you Republicans whining about? I'm paraphrasing here because he didn't put it in those terms. Right. These people are going to be tax-paying contributors to society. We're going to make money on them. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't know that it makes no sense. There are all sorts of reasons to create a legal basis for those who are in this country and have been for years upon years, who've led good and decent lives. There is no rationalization that I've ever heard of is because they're going to pay taxes. Of course they're going to pay taxes. Everyone's going to pay taxes. But I also...
This would be the first time for them.
The first time for them. And the fact is they're jumping over 7 million lawful immigrants. People are trying to come to this country the right way, do the right thing. This springboards them ahead to the front of the line with, I think, terrible consequence.
All right, so you're going to give the Homeland Security maybe an A- on its performance.
I would give John Boehner and Bob Goodlatte an A+ for having come up with an incremental approach that makes great sense.
Thank you very much. Lou Dobbs, don't forget, you can catch him tonight on this fine network we call Fox Business, 7 p.m. Go to your channel finder and track it down. If you don't find it, Lou and I will go to your cable operator's house and make it an unending hell. Meanwhile, I want